8 o'clock.
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
Do you want to start right now? Or you want to wait for people to get on?
Maybe we should wait and hang out for a second. So, just so you guys know, my little baby was supposed to be asleep. She's not really a baby anymore. She's almost 2, Lyndon. So she might be walking around and babbling.
That's okay.
Just fine, because we're just real here. So, it's fine. Huh. Yeah. So, we're going to wait just a little bit. We can enjoy our beautiful Americana room we've got going on here. Trent and I are in San Diego right now. He has a work conference, so I tag along. But I also am here for business too, so kind of nice. And we brought the baby with us. All the rest of the kids are at home, in good hands with Trent's brother Tyler. So yeah.
You want to get started with our story?
Yeah, I guess we should.
Do you want me to start or do you want to start?
I know, it's like, you know how you like go on like double dates and like you ask the person like, how'd you guys meet? And then like the woman starts saying stuff and then the guy's like comes in and like,
this is going to be different. We're not going to talk about how we met though.
Well, no, we're not. So welcome everybody that's joined on so far. Trent and I are currently in San Diego. We are in our hotel room. Interestingly, that we're on the bed. We're not, but we're here just having a great time. San Diego weather is fantastic. So shout out to all my San Diego friends that are here. I miss this place. We used to live here for 12 years when we were first married. Trent's from here, so it's nice to be back. So, all right. Well, we got a few people on. So,
where do you want to start?
We're just gonna get started. So the goal, basically, and why I wanted to invite my smarty husband on here, is intimacy is very important in marriage. You guys already know that. And we kind of wanted to talk about just our own story and where we were and where we are right now. And so it's just going to be, we'll try to make it quick so we don't keep you on here too long. But some of the things that I had always thought about in regards to my sexuality and negative conditionings that's happened in my life and yada yada yada. So yeah, do you want to start? Since
sure.
You know some women like to say too much, I'll fill in the fillers.
All right. Well, so I think that with the way we were raised, we both had really good parents who loved us and wanted to protect us. And one of the ways they protected us was not even talking about sex. And that was the way they felt like was best. Or if they talked about it, it was always, you shouldn't do that, until you're married. But for a lot of people in our culture and our religion, that means that they have this conditioning thinking that, oh, that means I shouldn't have sex, it's bad, it's wrong, ever, even though that's not what the message was, but that's a lot of the times the message that's heard and it's internalized. And we've talked about this. That's something that belief that sex is dirty might have helped Sarah to not get into trouble as a teenager. So that belief, although it wasn't 100% accurate, it served her in that time of her life. It was a good thing because it helped her be more cautious and not do things that she might have regretted later or maybe didn't want to do at a young age. And so I think that belief of sex is dirty, sex shouldn't do that, it was good for her at that time of her life. But once we got married, that belief of sex is dirty, sex is bad, all of a sudden became a hindrance to our relationship. And so, and that's just an example. It's not saying that all of our relationship problems or problems around intimacy and communication were from that. That's just an example of something that's very common, that people have a message that was good to help protect them at a young age, even though it wasn't maybe the correct message. And then when they got married, it affected their ability to enjoy intimacy later on. So that's something that we've talked about quite a bit, and it's really helped us understand how we want to communicate with our children about sex and how we want to help them understand that it's a wonderful, beautiful thing that we do as husband and wife, and that it's best if it's safe for that relationship. Not that it's bad or it's dirty or it's, you know, if you're a chewed piece of gum or you're like a piece of toast that's been touched by everyone in the room. So all these negative conditioning ideas around how sex is bad versus, no, it's beautiful and wonderful, but it should be used at the proper time. So that's something that we first start off with. Our first, I don't know, how many years of marriage do you think it was we didn't communicate? 10 years, maybe?
Authentically, you mean?
Well,
or
yeah.
like just even, I would say more along the lines of 12.
Yeah, so for the first 12 years, we probably, we were very,
so basically
very mature.
4 years ago, where things kind of just changed for us a little bit.
Because before that, I was afraid to tell Sarah anything I was struggling with. I was afraid to talk about any temptations I was dealing with, any thoughts that were, you know, not good, and I felt like I was alone fighting battles. Versus what I believe is a healthy relationship with a spouse is that you can communicate authentically and vulnerably about anything you're dealing with, and rely on your spouse to help you through those things. And so, the first 12 years of our marriage, we didn't talk about intimacy in a healthy way. We didn't really talk about or try to understand each other's wants and needs. We also recognize that we receive love in different ways. And so I try to give her love the way I like to receive love. And a lot of guys, that's physical intimacy. And she tried to give me love the way that she likes to receive love, which is service. So when she'd prepare dinner or clean the house, she thought she was showing me she loved me, which those things, you know, they're great, but they don't really make me feel loved. Makes me feel loved is when Sarah wants to be with me intimately, or she appreciates the things that I'm doing for the family. Those are the ways that I feel like she really cares and she loves me and she wants to be with me. Am I talking too much? Did you want to interject?
Well, I was just going back to like when we first met. He really had to win my love.
I was the aggressor. I was going after Sarah.
He was totally going after me, and I was putting up a ton of red flags. I was really rude, and I said some not so nice things to scare him away, but it didn't work. But
it broke my heart.
It did break his heart, but for him, I think he had to really obviously at the beginning of our relationship, he felt that he had to really earn my love a lot of the time.
I felt like I was always like not good enough for Sarah. Which in a way was, I think, good for me because I always felt like I needed to continue to serve her and try and show her I love her, even if I wasn't communicating well or we didn't have vulnerable conversations talking about hard things. At least it helped me to want to try and always be worthy of her and do the things that I thought would make her happy. So that was the good thing, but the bad part of that was it also made me feel like I wasn't good enough. And that's not healthy for a relationship, to feel like, oh, I have her, but I'm not good enough. I don't deserve her. To the extent of, I feel bad about myself and my self-worth. And so that was something that it took us a while to understand, why that dynamic existed and what we could do about it. But these might be things that do not relate to you at all. You don't relate to that at all, or they may be very similar to what you've experienced. But the reason that we're sharing this is that we found that by being vulnerable with each other, that it's allowed us to become much more close as a husband and wife. Prior to being able to talk about sex, which is probably the hardest topic that anybody has to talk about with their spouse. This is Lyndon, by the way. She was supposed to be asleep half hour ago, but she's on San Diego time right now. And anyway, because we've been able to learn how to communicate about sex, it's made it so much easier to talk about anything else. Any other relationship type of questions or concerns or conversations, anything about parenting, about just household stuff. It's a lot easier to communicate about the little things when you can communicate about the big and the hard things. And that's been kind of our experience.
Yeah. And then just to kind of frame where I was in that time, the fact that I didn't even know that he was of course I knew he was doing all kinds of things to earn my love, but he didn't verbally express that to me all those years ago. And
I said I love you. I didn't tell you I'm doing this to try and earn your love.
Right.
Yeah.
And so for my end, it was more like, and in regards to where I was thinking, like, how can I please him enough to feel that he would feel satisfied? And so I was always focusing on him, especially when we were intimate with each other. And then I would get easily frustrated in the moment or whatever, because.
And here's a secret that most women, well, maybe most women do know, but at the beginning of marriage, you probably don't know this. But husbands want their wives to really enjoy having sex. They don't want their wives to feel like it's just for the man, and it's not just for the man's pleasure. But that's a lot of times in in relationships where you come from a place of sex is dirty, sex is bad, and then you get married. A lot of times it seems that the woman in that relationship feels like, oh, this is just for him. He doesn't care about my pleasure, and I don't really want to do that because I feel bad if I do. Now again, this may not resonate with you, but if it does, just know that your husband, usually, most men I've talked to, they want their wives to have pleasure and enjoy sex. They don't want them to feel like, oh, it's just a chore, it's a duty, check the box, move along. I don't feel very wanted or loved if I have to, if I have sex with Sarah but she's not involved, she's not engaged, she's not having a good time. That doesn't make me feel wanted and loved. So I don't just want to use her body for pleasure. That's not connection for me.
Which I thought for so long that was the case.
Yeah,
I'm like,
for me, I want to be with Sarah emotionally as well as physically. So I want her to be engaged and wanting to be with me. That's what drives me and motivates me. When I know that Sarah has got my back with, the family stuff, work stuff is much easier to handle. When I know that she wants to be with me, it's so much easier to stay focused on my responsibilities, even if they're stressful or hard, because I know that she's with me and that she wants me, and I don't feel like, and a lot of men might have this where they feel tempted to, pursue other women because they don't feel like they're connected to their spouse. But most men I talk to, they don't want to be with other women. They want to be with their wife, but they don't feel connected, and so they have this emotional desire to connect. And if they can't get it at home, then all of a sudden they start doing things that are stupid. Now, that's not to blame their wife. It's not their wife's fault they did that. They didn't communicate their feelings, or they didn't work through them in a healthy way, or they expected immediate results because they said it like, hey, I want to be physically connected to you and emotionally connected to you. If I don't get it, I'm going to go cheat on you. Well, that's stupid. That's totally wrong. However, most men that I talk to that have these feelings that I don't like to be with my wife anymore, it's usually because they're not feeling emotionally connected. And because they don't feel emotionally connected and physically connected, they have that yearning and desire to connect somewhere with somebody.
Well, and I think too, for a man to actually step up and actually be emotionally present with their wives is very, very hard for some. So how do you get them to get to that level to where they can feel exposed and real and not feel the guilt and the shame that's probably they've already kind of felt maybe part into their marriage, and getting them to that emotional state where they actually can get to that connection with their wife. I think that's
this is something that
things that helped us for sure.
Something that we dealt with that was and this is something that we're willing to be vulnerable about because we know that it'll help other couples, is about 5 years ago, I was worried that Sarah was going to leave me over this. I had felt like I wasn't connected to Sarah emotionally. Now, I could never see myself going and pursuing another woman, but with technology today, it's so easy for men to get distracted and drawn into things that make them feel like they're escaping from reality. And so for part of our marriage, I looked at pornography as a way to feel like I was escaping, and it wasn't healthy. It's not something that I felt good or proud about, of course, but I didn't know how to talk to Sarah about that. And I think one of the things that really created a deeper connection for us was when she flat out asked me, hey, have you looked at pornography? And she'd asked me that, a couple years before, and I lied to her because I didn't know what to say.
So this is the key. I would phrase it like when I would ask him before, I'd be like, so you're good, right? Like, we're okay, right? And so I'd give him an out, basically. But this one morning, I remember March 13th, 2014. Like, that day is ingrained in my mind. That morning, I approached him with a different question. And it wasn't a statement, right? It was more of a question. And I said, do you struggle with pornography? And I think that was huge.
And I think that I didn't, in my mind, I didn't think like, oh, I don't have that big of a problem, because it wasn't something that was frequent, but it happened often enough that I knew that it wasn't something that I should be just trying to work on myself. And really what made it at that point in time where I was willing to talk to Sarah about is I was kind of frustrated with where we were in our connection and communication. And that conversation, although it was very difficult, it opened up the door for us to be very vulnerable with each other and talk about all the things that we've struggled with emotionally, spiritually, mentally. And when we were able to do that with each other, it took our relationship to a new level. Of course, it wasn't easy. That was a very rocky point where, my biggest fear was that Sarah wouldn't want to be with me if she knew that about me, that if she knew what I had struggled with, that she wouldn't love me anymore. And I'm grateful that she's a very forgiving and humble woman and recognized that. And immediately, of course, her reaction was, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me that he would do that?
Totally normal for every woman to think those things.
Even though it had nothing to do with her. And I tried to reassure her that it wasn't her fault. It was me not communicating and not willing to be open and honest with her when I was feeling those feelings of disconnect, stress, and frustration, and not feeling like I was loved or wanted. And I turned to these destructive behaviors. But since that time, and I think a lot of the times men don't want to talk about this type of topic because they feel like it makes them weak, and men are told that they're not supposed to be weak or vulnerable. However, for me, I felt like that was what made me the strongest in our relationship, was when I was willing to talk about the things that I struggle with and let
freed
Sarah.
You, right?
Yeah.
And just let that weight be lifted and be released in that way.
And I wanted to be honest with Sarah, and if I couldn't be honest with her about that, how could I be honest with her about who I am and who I'm trying to be and what I'm trying to overcome and deal with. And so I just got to say that Sarah's she's the best when it comes to humbly forgiving and supporting and helping me feel loved and not shamed. And she didn't fly off the handle. She could have done a lot of things and they would have been very justified in my mind. But she simply went off on her own and processed it. Of course, it took her a couple of days, but I got to say that Sarah's the easiest person to live with. So you are. So I'm very blessed in that regard, that I didn't have this huge negative reaction that I was expecting. I guess my biggest fear was that she'd say, "Oh, I don't love you anymore because you did that," and instead she saw me for who I am and recognized that doesn't define me. And so that was a very challenging part for me in our life, but it was also very
both of us
big turning point where since then I don't think there's any topic that's been hard for us to talk about. And anytime I'm feeling these emotions or feeling triggered or stressed, I don't feel like I've got to deal with that by myself. I think I've got to the point where if I feel those feelings, I can talk to Sarah and know that she's not going to shame or judge me, but she recognizes that I'm human and I'm trying to overcome things so that we can be closer and be united in that way. And I don't know, what do you else want to say about that topic?
Well, I think for me too, it's like so the first whatever, how many years was that? 12 years or whatever. Like it was just like I said earlier, it was more about I was in the moment to please him. I didn't feel any. I mean, I felt connection in the moment, But then afterwards, I'd have these feelings of guilt and stuff because I always would think that
to associate an orgasm with dirtiness,
dirty, naughty, like, all these things for the longest time, and so a couple months before he actually shared this news with me, I personally went on. We both really did. We both kind of went on this like personal development journey and really got into understanding more about who we are and who we want to be and how we can further progress our own individual lives. Because I think that I'm so grateful that we did that, because if he was to share this news with me
a year before,
I probably would have flew off the handle and I probably would have left him and all these things, and I totally could have gone the wrong way. But because of where I was in the moment, mentally, physically, spiritually, like all these things, I was just in a really good place, that he felt like he could come and approach me in that way, and it was the right time, and he felt safe in that time to be able to share. Yes, of course, I still had those immediate human gut-wrenching reaction. My heart sank to the floor, like all this stuff. Had to go process it, and I actually did a 10-minute video all about it. And anyway, it was a huge turning point in our marriage. And from that point on, we basically promised each other that we would continue learning and understanding how we can grow together in that way, especially with our authentic communication, and definitely improve our intimacy. So yes, this was 4 years ago, and it's been a process since, but for sure in the last 8 months, I was given a gift by a friend who basically said, she told me, like, she basically gave me permission to actually just go and explore and actually understand how my body really works. And I don't know why somebody had to tell me. Like, if Trent were to tell me that, then
I've already told you that several times.
Yeah, he's like, go, do this and this and this. I'm like,
you can enjoy sex, you can be there, and
for some reason, like, and I think too, I was just done with just like, why is this such a constant struggle for me? Why is this such a battle? And I always would say that I just struggle, and I kept putting that word into my mind, right? And it was just this constant battle that I was facing in my mind, and I was like, I'm done with this. Like, I'm just done. And so when I gave myself permission to be able to do this for myself and not for him, that was the hugest game changer. And obviously understanding, because I always thought this sex was just for him or whatever. Now, obviously, I know there's a lot more to it than that I definitely receive a lot more pleasure than he does, because we have 8,000 nerve endings in our clitoris, okay? So all kinds of stuff I've been learning about, but it's been a journey. But at the same time, I'm so grateful, and I think, like, looking back at the pattern of our marriage and our life, I'm grateful we had to learn them in this way. And we have so much more to give, especially to our kids. Just understanding how to appropriately share how important sex is to couples. And so I think that's been the biggest blessing.
I just kind of want to reiterate one thing, that most men don't want to escape from reality and go towards these negative things that are not healthy for relationships. They don't want to go towards pornography or an affair. Most men, there's some men that are just, that's what they're focused on, whatever. But for most part, men want to feel connection. And if they feel that connection with their wife, emotionally, spiritually, physically, they feel fulfilled. They don't have this desire to go off and fill themselves with that elsewhere, or escape from reality. Some people use drugs, some people use alcohol, some people use pornography as an escape from their reality and to dull their senses. But that's not healthy, as we all know. And people that struggle with that often struggle with connection. When there's a strong connection with another human being, usually those things are not too hard to overcome. Usually those aren't a strong pull for people who feel emotionally, spiritually, and physically connected to another human being. And so, as Sarah being, my best friend and my spouse, when I'm physically, emotionally, and spiritually connected with her, anything else that would be dulling my senses or helping me to avoid dealing with stress or dealing with the world, I don't need those when I feel like I'm connected. And so I think that most men are that way. Some men are different. I'm not saying that everyone's that way. But most men, they do generally have healthier ways of dealing with stress and dealing with life when they have good human connection with their spouse.
Ladies, men are pretty simple. They really are. We overcomplicate our own lives. So, but looking at them, I'm like, they just want to feel wanted, respected, and appreciated. Okay? Those are like the top 3 things. Would you agree?
Yeah, when I feel that, I feel like I can go out and work and do the hard things that I want to do with work, or, it motivates me to do what I need to do to show Sarah that I love her. I know that Sarah's love language is, service, and she loves quality time alone. So usually we like to go without, the kids, but this time Lindy got to come with us because she's so cute. She's Daddy's girl. But anyway, Sarah and I like to spend time alone, and we go off to reconnect that way. Because I know that it shows her that I love her if I'm committing time away from work and away from other things, other responsibilities, to be just alone with her on a trip. Or if I'm doing the dishes or helping the kids do their jobs, that those are ways that I can show Sarah that I love her, and by doing that, I'm showing that I appreciate her for all that she does for me. And I feel super motivated to do that when she's trying to show me that she loves me through her love language. Now, it's not like a tit-for-tat thing where we're keeping score, but when I recognize that she's showing me she loves me in that way, I feel even more desire to do the things that I know that shows her that I love her in her love language. And so that's, if you guys haven't read that book, that's been also very impactful for us to help us understand each other.
The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, actually, which is my father-in-law's name.
It's not my dad didn't
Not your
write
dad,
the book, though.
but it's
Same name.
funny.
But Gary Chapman, the 5 Love Languages, once we understood how we like to receive love individually, that gave me the opportunity now to focus on giving her love the way she wants it, because she doesn't always like receiving love through sex. That's not her primary love language. But that's how I like to feel like I'm connected and like she loves me and wants me, is when we connect in that way. And so she knows that the easiest way to make me feel like I'm wanted and connected and loved is to invest that time and want to be there with me.
And when he means be there with him, that means like, yes, we come
not physically only.
Yeah. We need to mentally get there. And as I've been practicing and learning, especially the last few months, how important it is to be mentally like in the mood and in the act in the moment. And I think what's been beneficial to you, like I've already posted on my Facebook page, I talked about the 5 the female sexual response cycle. There's 5 steps, and it's great, and I highly suggest you guys go back and read that as well,
with your husband,
and to do it with your husband, because what I love about Trent, and because we've been learning this stuff together, a lot of the books I've read, but he's been reading them with me, and of course I'm doing those every Monday, so I'll be sharing more, but what I love about him is that he wants to know where I'm at. He wants to know what phase I'm in, and to really, like, if I'm still in that warm-up phase, there's obviously more things going on in my head right here that like need to be talked about and discussed and everything. And so he's really good at just being present with me and letting me just
organize your brain.
Organize my brain, right? And just lay it out all on the table here. And I'd hope that your spouse would do the same for you. And to be able to just like unload whatever's happening and stuff. Because it is very, very crucial to be there physically and mentally connected in the moment. And since I've been doing that, it's definitely created a whole new experience, I believe. So, anyway, I haven't been watching if anybody's even said anything.
You have it on your phone, you can look and see.
I'm so new to all this live stuff. They're like, somebody's watching, so do I have to add them or something?
No. You just need to
Sorry.
see if there's any comments on here.
Is there anybody on that has some questions? But yeah, we don't want to keep you guys too long, but I think this is part of our story, and it's really been very important to both of us, obviously, and the fact that, I mean, just me, like, saying the word vagina and the word penis, you know, like, I wouldn't have said that out loud before. You know, just, like, there's just so many things that I've learned, and I'm stand in awe of, like, the amazingness of our bodies and the capabilities our bodies have to connect with another person, and to just feel like that intense love, you know. So, anywho, yeah. Do you want to say any last words or anything? I'm looking at my notes to make sure that we covered everything, because I want to make sure I covered everything.
Yeah, I think just the thing that I want to share is that I don't think that most people don't go into marriage expecting it to be easy, but I didn't expect it to be as hard as it has been either. And I never could have predicted how close I feel to Sarah now. As much as I loved her when we got married, I heard people say, "Oh, I love you even more than when we got married." I didn't understand that. But after going through our ups and downs, and you know, in celebrating our triumphs together, I now understand that better.
Not giving up on each other.
Where I feel an immense love for Sarah, for who she's become, and for who, you know, how she's dealt with me through any struggles I've had.
Dealt with you.
You've dealt with me. So that to me has been the greatest gift, is that I know that Sarah is with me through all things, thick and thin, and that she is willing to help me as I grow and progress. And that's allowed me to be more vulnerable with her. If I'm dealing with temptations or thoughts, I don't feel like I have to hide that from her. If I'm dealing with you know, frustrations and stress, I don't feel like that's something I keep from her. Even though, you know, again, the world tells us, oh, as a man, you're supposed to just take care of things and
suck it up.
You know, just
figure
be
it
a
out on your
man,
own.
figure it out. No, there's still stuff that I take care of on my own with business stuff, but I do know that I can always turn to Sarah if I need that support and I need that reassurance. And I've said this before, but I feel like with her, the way she is and the way she treats me, I feel like I can do anything. And so I feel super motivated, both in business and, you know, dealing with our children, because I know that she's with me 100% and that she's always there to support me. And so as a husband and as a man, that is very empowering to have someone like Sarah on my side. And so if you feel like your husband might be struggling with things or dealing with things that he doesn't share, help him to know that you're there for him and that he can share with you, that you help him through anything. I even believe that men that have made stupid mistakes, such as, you know, having an affair, that's something that, although it's a huge you know, breach of your trust, a huge thing to overcome, that it's something that you can't overcome in your relationship. Now, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, that they have to go through that, but I just know that that's something that when two people want to work things out, that there is a way even through that. It seems like it's the most difficult thing to overcome. But I'm just grateful for our relationship where it is today, and how vulnerability and communicating about what we're feeling, what we want, what we desire, what we struggle with, by sharing all those things with each other, that we don't feel like we're not judging each other. We feel closer and more connected. We understand that we're both real people, that we both have real problems, that maybe we thought, I'm the only one with this problem, or I'm the only one that has these thoughts. We now know that, we are normal, and that we have everyday problems that we deal with, that other people deal with too. So vulnerability has been one of the things that's most impacted our relationship.
Huge gift. So
and
grateful.
If you can get to that place in your relationship, you suddenly recognize this deeper love and connection you didn't realize could ever exist. And so that's what I just hope to encourage anyone that's listening to think about: how can you increase the authentic communication and vulnerability in your relationship in a healthy way?
Because that'll bring that emotional connection.
And that's
that you really
that's what I want. I thought I just wanted physical connection, but the reality is I wanted to be emotionally connected to Sarah, and physical connection can help with that in a certain way. But vulnerability is where we started, when we started to see that improvement in our relationship, and that great connection, and mentally and emotionally, came from authenticity. And so it's just super powerful. What's the book that Mel Robbins?
If I say it wrong.
No, which one's the authenticity one? Oh no, it's not Mel. It's Brene Brown.
Brene Brown, yes, of course.
Yeah.
Any of her books. Fantastic.
Brene Brown or Renee?
Brene
Brown.
Brene Brown.
She talks a lot about authenticity and how
vulnerability, shame, guilt.
How men shouldn't act like they're manly because they're not authentic and vulnerable. Yeah. The most manly men are those that are willing to let themselves be seen
and heard,
and not trying to hide who they are. So anyway, that's something I recommend, that if you and your husband want to read together. What's the one that we read, the first one?
I guess Imperfection was one, and then we did
There's a single word title one, I thought, like Brave or you probably should have wrote this one down.
But it's on my book list.
I'll comment below when we figure it out.
Yeah. Anyway.
Or Sarah will comment.
I'm like, brain freeze for a second. Well, but thanks for all those kind words, by the way.
You're welcome.
I love you. But yeah, this video isn't just to blubber about me, of course, but appreciate that. But yes, girls, I'd hope that you sit down and share this with your husbands too, and if you feel like they could watch it, great, because Trent had a lot of great insight, especially into how men think.
Your husband may be different. That's fine. You can ask questions like, "Is that how you feel?" or "How do you feel about that?" or "What is your experience?"
Yeah, because it probably wouldn't be the same.
I'm not saying that I'm speaking for all men, but for most men I've talked about these topics that are willing to be vulnerable, there's a lot of similarities between how men think in regards to these topics.
Yeah.
And I, for the longest time, had a big problem with being vulnerable. I was afraid of it. I was afraid of what could happen if I was too vulnerable. So it's very normal and common to have a fear of vulnerability. So.
Yeah. And I think, too, going back to what are those questions that, if phrased properly and correctly, you can be able to dig into another area that maybe that you didn't even think was even something that you struggled with or whatever. And I think it's a good place to think about what are those questions that you guys can discuss and talk about. Trent and I, we mentioned earlier, we like to get away, and I highly, highly, highly suggest, even if it's for one night, do a staycation if you have to, and just focus on your relationship and talk about those questions. Talk about how you can make some sort of game plan as to how you can rekindle your relationship if you feel that it's basically
Well, I think anybody can rekindle your relationship at any time.
You can, but I think just taking yourselves physically to another location without any distractions and really just focus on the two of you it's very important. We do it probably more. I mean, we try to do it at least like 4 times a year. It's something that's kind of like a selfish thing for us to do, but
it's good for our family.
It's so good for our family. So
it's good for our kids that we take the time to.
Yeah. So anyway, we appreciate you guys taking the time to peek in tonight and listen. And yes, please feel free to comment, and we'll answer any questions you guys may have. And I plan to bring him back on another time for another topic. But anyway, thanks for joining in.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, bye. Good night.